Niners broke the Eagles. Niners kind of broke the Cowboys. Looking through the rest of the schedule, we sort of thought last year that they broke the Rams, but maybe not. Maybe not. And they broke Jacksonville too, by the way. Don't forget that one now. Jacksonville Jaguars, remember? I think 6-2. Both teams coming off of a bye. Hosting the 49ers. Niners blow them out 34-3, sending the Jags into a tailspin that leads to them missing the playoffs entirely. Did they break Seattle? Beat them twice by double digits. Pete Carroll, gone. There's Baltimore that's looming out there.
I wouldn't say they broke Dallas. They woke Dallas because you look at what Dallas did after that, and Dallas was great. And, you saw what happened this weekend against Green Bay, and that might just be a case of two teams going in different directions, and it also might be indicative of the Cowboy quarterback being a regular season phenomenon.
Or something more simple. The Cowboys faced a good team, and that's what happens when they face a good team.
It could be.
That's it. They had 2 wins this year over teams with winning records. 2. They had 2, and you can explain both of them away. One of them was at home against Philadelphia when Philadelphia was no longer anything that resembled a winning team whatsoever, as we well know. And the other one was against Detroit when they didn't actually win.
But they beat the Rams. They beat the Rams.
Did the Rams have a winning record at the time?
The Rams wound up with a winning record.
Yes, I understand that, but I don't think they had a winning record. I could be wrong on that.
They were 3-5 after that game. That's always the interesting thing record over a team with a winning record. Do you look at it when they played them or how the team wound up?
Well, and was Stafford was in that game, right? Was Stafford in that game?
On October 29th?
Yeah, he was there, right? Was he still there or was he hurt?
He was in that game.
He was in that game.
He was in that game.
Yeah, you're right. He was in that game. Although he got replaced in that game.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's because the score was out of hand or if he got knocked out. But anyway, you look at it. I don't think chances are going to come any better than this. And I know how many of us feel. I was speaking with somebody who is employed by the team last week, and we parted company by me saying, "You going to get it done?" And he goes, "Probably not."
Oh, you're talking about Dallas?
No, the Niners.
Oh, the Niners.
Said, "Probably not." He goes, "Yeah, because, that's just like our past wounding talking, and that's the way these things go. And these other teams are really good, too. They've got coaches and players and salaries and the whole deal now." However, I do think that the teams that if we had polled everybody going into the weekend and say, who scares you in the NFC? I bet you the top 2 answers on the board are now both out.
Yeah, Dallas and the Rams.
Totally.
And I'm not that scared by Detroit, and there are things about Detroit that are scary, but a big factor is where they play. And if these two teams play, they won't be able to play where they play this weekend. Yeah. Now, they do have some great weapons. Your guy, Amon-Ra, St. Brown,
love him,
and a 2-man tandem in the backfield. They can run the ball, but the things that the Niners do so well are stop the run and get after the quarterback. And give credit to Jared Goff, who hung in there and played a good game. The offense was pretty muted in the second half, but they did enough to get that thing done. I was watching intently in the second half, and I was just waiting for the Rams to... Puka Nacua, your other guy. No wonder why you won the fantasy league. You had Amon-Ra.
That was mine.
You had Puka Nacua.
That was the receiving core.
You had both B. Robinsons, Bijan and Brian.
Yep.
And I don't even know who your quarterback was. It didn't even really matter.
Hang in there, big guy. Yeah, you
That
do.
was your guy.
My guy was Joe Burrow, but he got hurt, so we had to go with Goff, and it was good.
No, your team was deep, and you had St. Brown, and you had Puka Nacua, and you watched Nacua in that game.
He's so good.
And, man.
He's so good.
Like, if his hands get near the ball, it's a catch.
He's tough.
Yep.
He
doesn't drop the ball.
So refined with his route running. He's smart. Yes, he catches anything near him. In traffic, out of traffic. He's going to be a problem now for the Niners for a while.
Yes.
It's going to be a problem.
I thought they were going to win that game, and then they just couldn't get over the hump.
Couldn't do it.
The red zone. 3 field goals in the red zone. They could not get a red zone
Well,
touchdown.
luckily they were in the red zone, or those field goals wouldn't have been any good.
Yeah.
Like the sort of devious side of me was hoping for the Rams to line up
For one
a
last field goal.
48-yard field goal
Brett Maher.
to win the game down by 1. And I'm like, Maher is going to like Chase McLaughlin that thing. He's going to hit Jennifer Lee Chan with this kick. I could feel it. He was terrible, and he was bad all year.
Be careful with kicker karma, because you've got yourself.
The Niners are scary too. Yes, absolutely.
It's not a kicker problem, but if you think about, and we'll get into it as the week goes on, if you think about why the Niners could lose this game, the kicker is on the list.
Well, I would look at it this way.
He's on the list.
And this is a very unfair, arrogant thing to say.
I know where you're going.
Yeah, like that.
It shouldn't come down to that.
It should not come down to a kick. And one of the things that has impressed me most throughout his career, Brock Purdy, is what he's able to do in the red zone, which is so different than what Jimmy Garoppolo was able to do in the red zone. And then part of that is also having a running back like McCaffrey who pounds the thing in. The Niners need to use the end zones. Use the end zones, and everything's going to be just fine. Stay healthy and use the end zones, and everything will be just fine in these playoffs.
Do you know where the Niners rank in red zone touchdown percentage?
Probably not as high as it feels like they do. I don't know where they rank. I would guess that they were like just outside the top 10, if I had to guess.
Number 1.
Oh, they are.
Number 1.
Okay, I talked myself out of that.
Number 1.
67.2%.
It feels like they're amazing. It feels like they're incredible in the red zone.
I was kind of leading you on a Tuesday. It was a lob. I'm throwing lobs on a Tuesday.
I thought we were, well, I'm not a dunker. I can't jump. But I feel like we talked about that at some point in the year earlier, and they weren't maybe as high as it felt like they were. But the eye test, I mean, Moody has gone weeks without even being needed.
Right.
You're just like, dude, come kick the extra points and we'll get you a Gatorade after the game.
And he's been great on that. Finally missed one. But 67.2, slightly better than Detroit and Miami, your top 3 in red zone percentage.
You're leaving out what I think is the lead story of Niners-Packers when you focus too much on Jordan Love. I get it. He's on a heater. I think he's a good young player. I don't think he's faced a test like this by any stretch. Is he scary? Could he hit some passes? Could the Packers put a few points on the board? All of that is a yes. But here's what I'll say. The 49er offense should score a touchdown on almost every drive, unless they mess up. Unless somebody is missing assignments, the Packer defense cannot stop the 49er offense. So if the Packers get to 20, that's okay. The Niners should be hanging out north of 35.
Yeah.
That's what I would say in this football game.
And the other thing that I would be concerned about, and we can monitor it as we get closer, it's the conditions.
Here comes the rain.
Well, and your boy, your guy, he doesn't do well in the rain.
Now, Kyle Shanahan would argue with you now.
And the wind. It's going to be rainy and windy.
He would argue with you.
Well,
what are you basing it on, though? You're basing it just on the game against Cleveland?
The game against Cleveland was a big factor, yes. But he's played well in the rain, and he's not played well in the rain. And I think that
how many rain games has he played?
He's played in a few.
Like I can remember Cleveland this year.
Right.
I'm trying to think of anything else. When else was he in the rain?
I think last year they had some a rain game or two. I'm trying to remember.
Let me pull up their.
If go game by game weather-wise, but I do know this in terms of the rain and the wind. It gives the lesser team a greater chance in many cases to win.
Usually I do. Yeah, I feel like, there's a famous moment where Kyle Shanahan, they had a practice in the rain, and he was literally brought to the level of being inspired by what he saw Brock Purdy do with a wet ball and wet conditions, and he loved it. And I don't know how much we've actually seen it beyond that. Sure, there was the game in Cleveland, and a lot to unpack there with McCaffrey getting hurt and Trent Williams getting hurt and the conditions and the Browns defense at home and all of that. Was it sprinkling in Seattle this year on Thanksgiving?
I thought it was last year against Seattle, and he played well.
He played really well.
That was the game.
And that was the game he was hurt. That was after he broke his ribs against Tampa.
And I think that was a rain game.
It was only his second start of his life. So, I don't know. I don't know if he's had too many chances to do it, but I do know that Kyle Shanahan once upon a time felt really, really good about it. We're sponsored by Safeway. It's Willard and Dibs, 888-957-9570. How about the phones? Let's go to Rolando in Napa. Hey, Rolando, what are you doing?
Hey, I'm a big fan of you guys. I'm here at home. I'm prepping a little bit for dinner and decided to give you guys a call right now. So I'm a big fan. So
Appreciate
I'm
you.
prepping dinner.
All right, good.
Big question, you guys. I just want to know, like, what the hell happened to the Eagles this year? They got to do like a 30 for 30, or they got to do some investigating. Like, what the hell went down? My question to you guys, like, is this going to be considered one of the worst coaching jobs openings if they do fire Sirianni? I mean, who wants to walk into that mess of a dumpster fire? I mean, I'm asking you guys, what do you guys think? Is Eagles, if they do fire Sirianni, is it the worst head coach opening? Because I want to know, like, who wants to take that job, knowing what you're going to have to walk into. I mean, that they quit on that team. I mean, what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, Rolando, here's how I'd answer it. There's two types of coaching openings. There's ones where there's a quarterback in place, and there's ones where there's not a quarterback in place. It's actually that simple to me. So if the Eagles job opens, and by the way, I bet it's not going to. I bet Sirianni stays. That would be my guess. But if it opens up, you've got two head coaching openings right now that are sparkling because the quarterback is there, and that would be the Eagles and it would be the Chargers. Now we'll see if Dallas opens up, and obviously you can argue that the quarterback is there for at least one more year. Then contractually things can change. I don't know how you're feeling about Dak at this particular time. But to me, those openings are way better than the Washingtons and the Tennessees of the world because they're at ground zero when it comes to who the quarterback is.
Perhaps, unless you love Levis in Tennessee, and Seattle's got one more year at Geno, and you would assume that he gets one more crack, although you never know who the head coach will be in terms of do they buy him out and bring in another quarterback. There's a good number of quarterbacks in the draft this year, but I think if you look around at the openings right now, the Chargers would be number one.
Of course.
And I think you would go ahead and pencil Harbaugh in for that job if he wants it.
He is the favorite. I have all the lines in front of me right now.
Good.
In terms of, go ahead.
And I wonder who the Raiders' favorite is. If it is Pierce, if he's favored to keep that job, or if they don't even have him on the board.
Let's
but
see.
that's an interesting one to me because, the Vegas job is not as good as the Charger job, but it still is a preeminent brand, and Harbaugh's long been connected to the Raiders.
It's not on the board, and that's because I guess technically you'd argue there is no opening.
Sure.
And we also know that Max Crosby has already stood on the mountaintop and said, I don't want to be here if it's not Antonio Pierce. If you don't keep this guy, then you don't keep me either. That's big. That's big when a star player stands up for you like that. But it's not even on the board. The odds are up for next Eagles coach if it's not Sirianni, but he is a favorite, a minus 150 favorite to stay, okay? And there's also odds for the next Cowboys coach if not Mike McCarthy, and he is a minus 300 favorite to go. To be fired.
I think that he will be fired.
I agree.
And I think that Sirianni will stay. Once you get past the disappointment and you let the dust settle, you look at 34-17 and 3 straight playoff berths, and you ask yourself, how can we get rid of this guy and do better? Because I don't know if you can do better. Now, you give him another year, and he comes back, and you don't get any better, and he's got work to do now. And you mentioned it with all of the older players, the retirees, the free agents.
Yep.
It's not a complete reboot because you have your quarterback, but it's definitely a retool at the very least. So I wonder how much faith they have in him to be the overseer for that rebuild.
Well, and sometimes also it comes down to who's available. Like, are the Cowboys encouraged to fire Mike McCarthy because Bill Belichick's available? Maybe. Next Eagles coach, if Sirianni's fired, the favorite, Mike Vrabel. Maybe they're happy about that idea. Favorite for next Chargers head coach, Jim Harbaugh, far and away. Favorite for next Commanders head coach, Ben Johnson, OC in Detroit.
Okay.
Favorite for next Cowboys coach, if it's open, obviously, Bill Belichick. Favorite to be the next Falcons head coach, also Bill Belichick. Favorite to be the next Panthers head coach, Kellen Moore. And the favorite to be the next Seahawks head coach is Dan Quinn. Bobby Slowick, favorite to be the next Titans head coach.
Okay. The Quinn move makes sense to me. And if you're Belichick, it's Dallas or bust, in my opinion. I don't know if you want to go to Atlanta. I know Atlanta's got a good young roster, but it just doesn't seem like the right fit for me.
Well, but an interesting
old school owner.
Interesting thought has been brought up with the idea of the Cowboys and Belichick, which is who takes the power. You got Jerry Jones as your owner, and his son is running personnel. And if I'm Bill Belichick, what am I going to do? I'm going to come in and be like, yeah, you guys can keep running the show.
No, I think he comes in and says, I've got not only a seat at the table, but I've got the loudest voice at the table.
And the Jones are okay with that.
Well, I think that they're at a point where they have to be.
Maybe.
And Jerry is 80, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, but Steven
runs it.
Steven runs
but
it.
I think you get to a point where you got to start getting this thing done. And if you can bring in the greatest coach of modern times as a guy to come in and help you.
But is he? I mean, I know what you're saying.
I mean,
he's the most accomplished.
Sure.
But Tom Brady's not going to be the QB.
Right.
So,
but I mean, Bill comes in motivated to prove all of the naysayers like you wrong that it wasn't just Tom.
Well, I didn't know.
Because the narrative now has been, it was Tom.
He's a great coach. I'm not saying that at all. He's a fantastic coach. He built that whole thing.
Yeah.
But let's not act like it's apples to apples. Like he's not coming in under the same circumstances that he had when he won in New England.
No doubt.
I mean, look at the circumstances of the last 3 years. They were a total joke. So, anyway, real interesting. And
Dak with a dead cap of, it's $62 million.
They've got an out after next year. They're not doing anything. They're not doing anything this year. Dak is going to be the quarterback next year.
But that, to me, if you're Bill, do you want to come in and
I don't know.
Or would you rather maybe go to Atlanta and have a clean slate to go out and draft a guy or get Justin Fields if you like him?
Atlanta's an interesting roster and a very, very winnable division. Bill knows a thing or two about a winnable division.
True.
And not a bad way to go. Can we take a moment to be thankful that we here in the Bay Area are not having this conversation this year?
Was Steve Wilkes on any of those lists? People are asking on YouTube.
For sure. But I might have to move around a little bit. He interviewed for the Chargers job, if I am not mistaken. So, where's the Chargers thing? Wilkes is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on the board at 20-1.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just was asking because I don't think that the Niners get a comp pick until he's been the coordinator for multiple years.
He's also on the board for the Cowboys, but he's like 17 guys in front of him. Or
Trey Lance reunion.
And he's on the board for the Falcons. Same thing, though. About 17 guys in front of him. So he's on these lists. He's not high on any of them.
Yeah.
Not high on any of them.
Okay.
How about Lucas in San Ramon? Hey, Lucas, what are you doing?
Not much, guys. I'm kind of just sitting, mourning the loss because I'm an Eagles fan out here from the Bay. I'm definitely heard a lot from my Niners friends around. I definitely would say I don't think the Niners necessarily exposed us. I really think that the switch from the side of Patricia, that was a huge issue for our struggles this year. And I definitely agree that the Niners, it was a little bit of a shock to us since we got dominated in that second half. It was a really, really ugly loss, to be completely honest. However, Matt Patricia sucks. Like, let me just get that out of the way. Let me be clear about that. Like, Tampa Bay only put 9 points in Carolina the week before yesterday. I mean, that's just embarrassing to go out at Tampa and lose to a team that's been so struggling on offense in the last 2 weeks. Understandably, I do think Carolina and the Saints have better defenses than we do, but I definitely think that it's the coaching, 100%. I don't think it's Jalen. He made a couple mistakes last night. The safety was really a bad play. He has a little bit of a couple bad reads here, but Brian Johnson, I've been an Eagles fan for my 19 years on this planet. And Brian Johnson's probably the worst coach I've seen with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Lucas, you can blame coaching all you want, and I'm not going to get in your way. Not even a little bit. I'm not.
You gotta let Lucas eat.
Well,
now.
I'm not a day in and day out Eagles expert, but I can tell you their defensive problems run far, wide, deep and have been there the whole year. You could have games. All you had to do was watch them play the Buffalo Bills. And it's why I came in the next week peacocking. Not like the streaming app, but like a guy with confidence. Peacocking. The Niners are going to kill this team because you could see it that everything was being masked at that time by Jalen Hurts in the flow. He was in the flow, so was A.J. Brown. And they could mask a lot of things. But their defense could not stop a runny nose. And the only reason the Bills didn't win that game is because Josh Allen missed wide open receivers in the end zone repeatedly, including in overtime. The opportunities were all there. That stuff is not sustainable. You want to blame the coaches? Go right ahead. You're probably right on some level, but they were effective a sum total of nowhere on defense. Their defensive line is passable. The rest of their group is god-awful, among the worst in the NFL, period. Thank you for listening to my talk.
Well, to his point, the defense did get worse when they made the DC switch. And scoring-wise, they were 30th in the league for the season. And you look at when they went to the pencil as the defensive coordinator, they got worse. And I don't know if the team lost faith in the coaching staff, but it sure looked like that team down the stretch lost their will to go out there and compete.
Yep.
Ever since the Niner game, they lost 5 of the last 6 in the regular year. You mentioned the only win was over New York, and it was a bit of a nail-biter, and then you got trucked in Tampa.